Hey guys, today I'm going to make a pair of mittens. Very similar to the ones that Bernie Sanders wore this week to the presidential inauguration. So first thing we've got to do is get our materials. Mine are, of course, an old wool sweater. It's falling apart, as you can see. And then this is a sweatshirt fleece from a hoodie. This is the hood off of an old hoodie. So this is going to be a very, very simple project. If you've never sewn before, you can give this a try, and I feel like it would be a good project to start out with. I'll do a little bit of hand sewing for those of you guys without a sewing machine, and I'll do some machine sewing to help out the people with a machine. Whatever your skill level is, just have fun with it. This next part sounds pretty elementary, but you are going to get a marker and trace your hand. If you're not feeling super confident, you can get something that washes away. I just have a dark color, so I could use chalk, but I'm just going to use a Sharpie because it's what I have on hand. So I'm literally going to trace my hand. This is the lining. This is the sweatshirt fleece, so this is going to be the lining of the mitten. I want to leave a little bit of space. This needs to be a 1/2 inch away from your fingers to allow for seam allowance. So when you trace your hand, it's going to look something like that. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This is, like I said, a very, very simple mitten. You don't have an extra thumb piece, or what's called the trank, which is the piece under the thumb. This is just like the most very, very simple mitten that you could imagine making. So I'm going to extend this down just a little bit and draw a line across where I'm going to cut it. Get my scissors, and this is 2 layers, so I'm just going to cut them both at the same time. Go around the thumb and then cut a little bit extra, even though I didn't trace that far down in. You want to cut just a little bit more so you have some more thumb movement. So now that I've got this one cut out, I've got 2 pieces for 1 glove. Now I want to do the other side for the other glove. And so I'll just trace this so the other hand is symmetrical and the same size. So now I have 4 of these. I'm going to take one and trace it onto my wool sweater. With this, I'm going to go up just a little bit higher because I want to keep this ribbing edge for the edge of my glove, and it's going to come up a little bit higher on my wrist. All right, so now I've got both of them traced onto my wool sweater, and I'll go ahead and cut both of those out. right, so now I have 8 pieces, 2 for the right on the sweater and 2 for the right of the inside of the fleece, and 2 for the left of the sweater and 2 for the left of the fleece. So now we're going to start sewing. I'm actually going to use the yarn from the sweater to sew with. So I've taken one of the sides and unpicked it a little bit, and then gotten a thread that I can start to unravel the knit. And if it breaks, you can just grab the next side and unravel some more. Okay, hopefully that should be a big enough pile of yarn to hand sew our mittens together. So I'm going to grab my mittens and I'm going to turn them right sides together. So you have the ribbed side with the knits, and then you have the back side with the purls. Honestly, you can pick whichever is your favorite, but I'm going to have this be my right side, so I'm going to put them together. Next, I'm going to thread a needle with some of my yarn. And then I'm going to tie a slip knot at the end. So a slip knot is just like a regular knot that you don't pull the thing all the way through. So it has a little bit of a tail. All right, I'm most of the way around my glove and I'm running out of thread. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to open it up and make sure that my stitching looks nice and there's no holes. And then I can tie off this knot. What I do with that is I just make a loop, then I put my needle through it, and I do that a couple times, going through, making that loop, putting the needle back through, pulling it, and that will make a knot. So I'll just do that 3 times. Then I can cut that off and thread my needle again. I'm going to go through that process again of making a slip knot. Then I go through the slip knot. And tighten that up. And then I can continue whip stitching around the rest of the hand and the thumb. All right, I'm back to the end of my glove, my ribbing, where my ribbing is, and all I want to do is tie that off with that same knot where I go in through the loop. Once again, just gonna make a stitch, go in through that loop, and I do that about 3 times to make it secure. And then what I like to do, just so there's not a random thread hanging off the edge of the glove, I take the thread, the needle, and just go back up through the stitching. And then I clip it up here so it's not hanging and dangling down. All right, so I've got one of the outsides of my mittens done. At this point, they're still really big because they don't have a lining. I mean, you could just turn it inside out and be done, and that's totally fine if you want to just do that. But if you want to add the fleece lining, we'll show you that next. Now I've hand sewn around both of the outsides of the mittens, and I'm going to take my lining to a sewing machine and sew around those. So I have my lining fabric, and this is going to be the right side, the inside of the mitten. So I have my right sides together. I'm going to stitch around the edge of the glove. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can do this same process of hand sewing with the whip stitch around, just like you did before. If you have a sewing machine and you don't want to hand sew, then you can do this to the knitted part of the outside of the glove as well. It's totally up to you. I'm just showing you both ways. So now I'm using about a 1/2 inch seam allowance on here. This will be a little bit tighter on the inside. Notice that I didn't pin these together. If you are a beginning sewer, or if you're just more comfortable pinning things, then pin it before you sew it. All right, I'm gonna make sure that my hand will fit in there and that it's cozy and comfy and it fits pretty good. I'll do my other hand. This one's a little tighter, so I might need to unpick. But other than that, it fits pretty good. So I'm gonna unpick this side just a tiny bit and loosen it up. And after I do that, I wanna make sure that I cut all the way to the center of where your thumb and finger meet so that you can move your thumb around easily. And then I'm also going to trim around so I don't have all of this excess bulk and fabric on the inside of the mitten. Now that I have all 4 of these mittens sewn, I'm going to take the outside of the mitten and turn it right side out. And do that on both of the mittens. And then I'm going to take the lining. You can even put it on your hand if you want to. You put that on and then slip that inside of there. So my lining stops about right here at the wrist where I have the cuff continuing on a little bit further. And we'll do that to both gloves. All right, now that the lining is on the inside of the mitten, we're gonna stitch it together. I've chosen a bright colored thread just so that you can see my stitching. All right, now that I have my needle threaded, I'm going to turn the cuff up on the mitten so that I can access the lining. So the great thing about knitted fabrics is that they won't fray. If you want to go around the edges and finish this, you are more than welcome to. But I'm just gonna kind of tuck mine in so that the raw edge will be inside of where I am sewing. So there won't be any raw edge. So it looks nice and neat. Then I'm just going to take my needle and thread and stitch the two together. And you can do this with the whip stitch that I showed you before. So you can see I've whip stitched all the way around the edge. I'll just kind of see where my pink stitches are a little bit, but it's not too bad. So if you want to pick a coordinating color thread, that would probably be better, but for our purposes I've just chosen something that you can hopefully see. You're going to tie it off and do the same thing on the other mitten. So if your glove is inside out, this is what it's going to look like. You can turn it back the correct way. And now your mittens are all done.